He was trying to be a bit too creative potentially, and Javokir was able to counterattack. But here we see the Petrov defense, the opening of the tournament so far. It has appeared a few times, and that shows Hikaru's mood.
Especially by the player who's got that match advantage, right? With the first game win, you want to keep the second game solid. And look at that, Javokir chooses a response that does try to create an early imbalance, but Hikaru knows this opening. It was incredible to watch him in action in those last few moments. That just felt like a Hikaru Nakamura stream on, just the way he turned around game one.
Really amazing stuff, and he pulls the rabbit out of the hat. I suspect that's not going to be the first time we see a similar finish to that in this tournament. That was simply the opening salvo, and many more to come, I am sure. But right now, look at, he's back in the zone, he's bobbing his head, he's getting his head in the right place for game number 2, and that is the hallmark of a player who's so good at resetting. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Hikaru holds the record for the number of Blitz wins in a row. Probably not just on chess.com, but other places as well. And frankly, his ability to reset after every game and just continue to crush his opponents is one of the hallmarks of why he's so good.
Exactly, defeating dozens and dozens of Grandmasters in a row. Not many are capable of that, even on 1 or 2 occasions, but Hikaru, he plays game after game after game, and that experience, that kind of muscle memory really pays off. This opening, meanwhile, we only saw a trade of 1 pawn. Sindarov doing a great job with white of keeping as much tension as possible. But Hikaru seems to know his stuff, seems to have studied this before, just judging by the speed with which he's been playing. Opening success for Hikaru, it feels like, Tanya.
Javokir also equally impressive, I want to say. Yes, opening success on the clock. You know, you also have developed all your pieces, but let's not forget the big takeaways for Javokir. He was the one on the edge for the most part of game 1. He was the one putting pressure on as well. So he knows he has it in him to create those chances. And the last 2 moves, H-pawn moving up the board, the bishop sliding with the spin, a potential knight jump to G5. I think Javokir's got tricks of his own. Hikaru, meanwhile, unfazed, simply retreats, unpins the queen.
I want to ask you guys a little bit about that because, you know, we see the Petrov, okay, we're trying our best to be nice and positional, very, very solid, and then we chuck H4 in there. How normal is this? Are we raising eyebrows? Is this perfectly within theory?
I think up to a point it was within known territory, but this is Sindarov kind of trying to keep as much tension as possible, trying to put his own spin on things. The Petrov is known for quick trades, quick simplifications. Often it's very symmetrical, the pawn structure. So although objectively it feels like Hikaru is doing decently, it feels like Sindarov has managed to create enough imbalance to be optimistic for the future. There was a bit of a frown on Hikaru's face there in the meantime, the white queen stepping forward, hitting one of the black pawns on the diagonal, but inviting black forward.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the question. D3 is screaming at me right now. Is that the insta move you play here, Tanya?
It is the insta move, but you know, social media didn't get anyone too far, and I'm just wondering if white wants to plant that queen to the center of the board. You go D3, you go queen E4 with a duo threat. You're attacking the H7 pawn. You're also threatening the C4 pawn. I think we're going to see this being played out, and the only way black can counter this resource is G6. It arrives. Hikaru Nakamura, it's like he's seen far into the future, David.
Yeah, and playing very quickly, playing intuitively here, Hikaru. He blocks one of the attacks, hits the white bishop. I know the move Javokir wants to play. He wants to sacrifice that bishop somehow, maybe even leave it on the square it's on. But ultimately, there are safer options. You can retreat it, you can trade it off for that black knight. The black king doesn't have too many defenses around it, and with the H-pawn marching, we have seen this type of thing lead to success for white before. But again, long-term, Hikaru doing great with a pass pawn sitting on D3. Short-term, Javokir needs to land a knockout blow.
Absolutely, and Hikaru bobbing his head. I think he agrees with everything that you just said right now, as Javokir pins that pawn which was attacking the bishop, lines up the queen against the king. And this might be a good time for Hikaru to try and think of some trades that he can get going on the board with that D3 pawn planted so beautifully. Endgames would favor black.
It is worth pointing that this looks hella scary if you're the black player right now, and white to an extent. You've got a protected pass pawn on D3 on one hand. On the other hand, you're thinking, hang on a second, those pawns in front of the king look like they could be seriously provoked with a move like H5. There's a lot of stuff to consider here, and H5 could still be on the cards, you know.
Yeah, Hikaru trying to force some trades first, but definitely H5 is Javokir Sindarov's plan. There was a trade of light squared bishops that alleviates some of the pressure. 3 is the magic number when it comes to attacking. White had a queen, bishop, and 2 knights. That was more than enough to overload the defenses. But now with that trade, it feels like less pressure. And the white queen is staring at a pawn on the 4th rank on c4, but then a black knight will jump out the way. Knight takes e5, discovered attack, black rooks, black knight, all hitting Her Majesty there.
But definitely in the air. Always watch out for those tricks. One of the trades that I would think Javakir wants to get on the board is get the bishops off the board. You know, you see for Hikaru's king camp, there are a lot of dark squared weaknesses. So if Javakir is able to get that defender bishop and then plant his knight on a beautiful f6 square via a route that's already available at the center of the board, that might give him the attacking possibility and the chances to go for Hikaru's king.
So if we had to pick any square for that bishop to be on right now, would the idea be to try and get a knight onto d4 and have it swapped off so your bishop can stay on d4 instead? Or where are we thinking that lives?
I'd want to go to g5. Like I said, I want to get the bishops off the board, trade those bishops and make the most of the dark squared weaknesses. But Hikaru's got plans of his own right now. Even Javakir has got plans of his own. h5 does arrive again. He has to play for the win. He has no option at all. He's in a must-win right now, trying to create trouble for Hikaru on the king side.
Yep, Harry the H-pawn is often used as a battering ram in chess, in modern chess, ever since AlphaZero. The AI entity introduced all of these ideas of just planting a pawn near the enemy's king and playing the long game, hoping for checkmate a bit later. But Hikaru says there might not be a later if you want to go for checkmate with the queens off. And again, long-term black's doing well, so this queen trade most likely should be avoided by Sindarov.
Yeah, and I should point out as well that the pawn on h5, if the queen moves out from defending that pawn, it looks on the surface like you've got a pawn and knight attacking it and black can go a pawn up. But given that g-pawn is directly in front of the king, that's not really something Nakamura is seriously considering at this point.
Yeah, you rarely want to capture one of these h-pawns, especially capturing away from the center, opening up your own king. Better to let the pawn live and just maintain the status quo. But Hikaru just looks very, very chilled on camera. This is like streaming Hikaru, as you mentioned, Tanya. Javakir locked in, but goes for something very forcing. We talked about how this pawn maybe was poisoned.
He's playing with fire right now with the rook lined up against the queen and a potential knight jump. You've got some juicy squares to choose from, including a pawn capture at the center of the board if you are Hikaru Nakamura right now. But I think this is the need of the hour for Javakir. He just had to go all out right now. Just hard to find, hard to keep control otherwise, hard to keep playing for a win. But this is playing with fire. And I think the chances are more that it backfires. Knight takes pawn is the first move that comes to my mind here.
I have just tried and failed, by the way, I should point out. After black plays knight takes pawn, I'm going, oh goodness. So if white recaptures with the knight and both queens can be captured, and then I think my brain short-circuited at some point. I'm not actually sure whose side that figures. But maybe that's a suggestion that the complications could be favorable for one player or the other.
Yeah, it's pure calculation. And I think this last move by Sindarov is intended to force Hikaru to calculate. We see the analysis board on the right here, the live board is on the left, and the move Hikaru wants to play is knight takes pawn. It's a double attack against the white queen. If the white queen moves, for example, tries to run away, we would see a trade, and maybe the black pawn will step forward to the d2 square in the near future. This looks very powerful for black.
Yep.
So the key, the one you have to evaluate is after the trades, rook takes queen, knight takes queen. When the dust settles, does white have enough of an advantage here for Hikaru? Is he safe enough? Maybe this pawn is just a bit too far forward and could be corralled a bit later on. The alternative for Hikaru is to jump the knight the other way, hitting the white queen, and next move landing a knight fork.
Oh, wow.
This would lead to pure chaos.
I'm going to be honest, that move completely skipped my radar. That looks extremely dangerous. It's coming in with a big fork on the two rooks. Not only one major attack, but the other two coming under fire as well.
I'm going to ask the question, is that winning for black? What's the resource here that saves white?
I thought it was, and here, this is not me, this is me checking the oracle of the computer. Pawn to e6.
No!
Counter-attacking, hitting the black queen. And this is happening, by the way. Now the white queen slides across, and there's still an ongoing attack against the black king. This is far from over, but played by Hikaru Nakamura. He's going for the win now.
But now Javakir needs to find this move.
Yeah,
and it's not an easy spot. E6 going on the counter offense. If he doesn't find it, Hikaru Nakamura will be with the edge.
Now, he has got a little bit of extra time, but we're talking 5 minutes, plays 5.5. So it's some time, but it's not a crazy amount of time. And when you're under this much pressure, having to find a move like that, that is wild.
Yeah, so difficult. And just as Javakir forced Hikaru to eat up some of his clock time, now Hikaru is forcing Javokir to calculate.
I think to put this into perspective, this is exactly the kind of move where in a classical game of chess, you would not blink twice if you had a grandmaster taking 15, 20 minutes before making this next move. Like, it is so super critical, and these players are having to make that decision in like dozens of seconds.
Absolutely, and look at this. Javokir as well on beast mode finds the only move. Process of elimination is what got Sindarov to this decision. He gets that E-pawn moving up the board. You can still capture it. Knight takes pawn and the line isn't over. The complications continue.
Just to point out one possible continuation, knight takes pawn, the white queen will slide across. The key here is that the white knights are jumping forward. One of the white knights can hit the black queen in the near future.
Yep.
This is just the beginning of the battle.
That is absolutely insane. And choosing to go into these kind of complications when so much is at stake. We should point out, of course, the match situation. Hikaru won the first game. This is must-win for Sindarov. So trying to create as many complications as possible. But every time I see this exchange of ideas, I'm thinking, well, hang on a second. Is it Javokir who's trying to create the complications, or is it Hikaru? It feels like both players are going at it hammer and tongs.
Well, the brand of chess that both of them have, this is what we expect, and this is what we love to see, right? It is a cutthroat battle, and for Sindarov, only one result matters right now.
Yeah.
So it does make sense that he's gone into these complicated waters. Pawn takes pawn was the choice for Hikaru Nakamura, and still big questions for Sindarov to answer with just about 4.5 minutes on the clock. Where does he move the queen? How does he respond to the knight fork that's coming in next?
This is all in from Sindarov. Yes, he found that brilliant last move. Yes, this was given a question mark by Hikaru Nakamura, but ultimately, he's just got to go for the black king now. One of the two white rooks will fall. The black knight is going to jump into c2. You're just going to have to ignore the fact that those rooks are hanging, and time to go for that black king. It's got a knight around to defend, but other than that, the white queen, white knights, they could do some damage too.
If you want a summary of how tense the game is and how high the stakes are, hearing someone say, you have to ignore that your rooks can be captured. You just ignore that everything's hanging. You're thinking, hang on a second. Given the magnitude of what's going on here, that feels like an insane statement to make, but you're absolutely right.
You need nerves of steel to handle this position. And I think we might see those steel being played out because you really can't defend both rooks, right? You are going to lose material. Your best hope is to fight for that advantage. And there are a lot of tempting options. You could start with pawn takes pawn. You could start with a knight jumping over. You got about 3.5 minutes to figure all of that out. It's definitely harder to be Sindarov right now.
Yeah, this is like a labyrinth. Good luck finding your way through and coming out healthy on the other side. The white bishop can move. You can ensure that you get at least that black knight for one of your two white rooks. But where to put that bishop is a question. How directly to go for the black king is a question. Sindarov, he would love 3 hours on his clock, but 3 minutes, surely not enough now.
Time is of the essence, not only on the clock, on the board as well. Does he have time to move that bishop? Does he have time to capture the pawn? And he's fully locked in right now, trying to calculate and navigate his way best through these variations. A tough ask. He does jump in with a knight, comes in with a threat on that queen, which can be centralized to a more active square by Hikaru. Hikaru doing the queen's gambit pose there, starts looking at the ceiling right up.
Psychologically as well, it's just, it's so important where Sindarov is trying to create complications. He needs to win this game to stay in the match. And Hikaru is staring him down, saying, you want complications? I'll give you complications. You can't handle complications, and he's really bringing the fight to Javokir here.
But do not underestimate Javokir's ability to handle those complications. David, eventually he does go for your idea that at least he wins some material back. Not only that, he places the bishop at a square. That Hikaru's pawn cannot move any forward. He's still eyeing that g6 pawn for trades to open up pathways towards Hikaru's king.
That is a crazy move, though. He could have moved his bishop to another square, protecting the knight in the center. This is a full rook sacrifice. He will not get that black knight if it captures the white rook in the corner on a1. If the white rook retakes, the white knight on e5 drops. This is a full rook sack, and he's going all in. He's going for the attack. If the black knight sidelines itself, he's going to go for that black king.
So, knowing that, I'll ask the question, does knight takes a1 win on the spot?
For who is the big question?
And for who? Yeah, exactly. I'm not even sure.
It's very gutsy, this last move. Knight takes rook on the corner of the board. The idea that white has to have is pawn takes
Not
pawn.
played.
And it was scary enough for Hikaru to not go for it.
Wow. There's something about that maybe we haven't seen, but this is getting into some seriously deep territory.
Yep, he's arguing here, Hikaru, that that rook in the corner will not run away. Here we see some of our very special guests in the audience But pawns f4, given a question mark, it's one of those positions. I think we can forgive the players for the mistakes that are guaranteed just due to the clock time. And this now results in Hikaru capturing this rook. Maybe capturing the other rook would have been the acid test of White's whole sacrificial idea. But still, this one, anyone's position. This could swing either way in a heartbeat.
I would love to find out why rook takes a1 wasn't played on the previous move. There's some really cool stuff here that I'm sure we can go and understand. A check getting played in the meantime. And this is, regardless of how this game ends, it feels like it's been chaos unleashed.
Well, Hikaru, with every move, is just not giving Sindarov the opportunity to go pawn takes pawn on that right flank, to open up the line for the white queen towards the black king. There have been trades and captures on every single move, forcing the capture back. Now the white rook hits the queen, and Hikaru Nakamura needs only a draw. So will he force further trades there? He seems undecided. Will he put the rook to block? Will that be the bridge, or will he find a square for the queen? Hikaru looks tensed.
Yeah, I think he wanted to move the queen, but realizing the black queen doesn't really have anywhere good to go. She can drop into f2. She'll get hit by a white knight, so he does block. Very, very logical when you're up material. You want to exchange, and he sacrifices his queen, Hikaru Nakamura.
It's a big move. He picks up the knight, and that is a queen, a sacrifice. The queen falls back, trying to activate to get to those pawns. Look at that beautiful centralized rook, defending b7, defending d3.
There we go. He solidifies that rook. Very hard to kick that rook out of the middle. We should clarify here, black has 2 rooks and a very powerful passed pawn in return for white's queen. It is small advantage, at least objectively, for Hikaru Nakamura, but queens, they are so tricky. And this is not going to be one-way traffic for now. The white bishop is the problem. Cannot really get into the game. Purely a blockader. But the black knight, not impressive either.
And that's because of Hikaru's last move, right? Sindarov's last move, the g-pawn moving forward, taking away some jumps from that black knight from getting into the game. This is still anyone's game. Yes, the bar says that Hikaru's the one who's doing well right now, but if the queen is able to infiltrate with some devastating checks or get on those dark squares on the longest diagonal on the board, you know, plant it on e5, get the bishop on c3, there are big ideas for Javakir to play for. Meanwhile, Hikaru Nakamura wants a post for his knight.
He runs away with his king. That does drop the g6 pawn, but if the white queen ever runs away, c4 is hanging. The black rooks would enter. If you could pick up the black rooks, put them anywhere near the white king, this is Hikaru Nakamura's game. But for now, it's very, very tense. And Hikaru is down on the clock. He's down 20 seconds. Javakir needs to use that as a weapon.
He does, because that's the weapon that Hikaru used against Javakir in their game 1 from a busted position to eventually deliver checkmate. Can Javakir get the whole story done again in his favor right now? But now the clocks are leveling out. Not an easy decision. Queen takes pawn is what you want, but that allows the rook activity.
He has to move fast. Javakir, he's thrown away his 20-second advantage. It's currently 93% accuracy against 92% accuracy. Such a high-level game. Javakir going for it, trying to blow open the black king. This is great play from him, but did he spend too much time? Hikaru now 1 minute versus 1 minute. Can he hold it together?
Hikaru can always hold it together, and we are in a bullet ballet right now. The rook's coming into the attack. There's a threat of a rook sliding onto the e2 square, coming in with a check. You could pick up the pawn on d3. Did Hikaru just miss that? He never misses anything.
Wow, Javakir didn't take that black pawn. A frown here from Hikaru Nakamura. Watch out, the black king is caught in a mating net. There are some back rank checkmate ideas. The white king now, only one way to go. Has to go back, otherwise it would have been mated itself. Do not take that bishop. The white queen will deliver a killer blow. Retreats this rook. Any checks now on the back rank can be blocked by the black rook.
And if no check, then black just simply picks up that power pawn on g6, and no checkmate, thank you very much. This might be forcing a repetition with the rook going back and forth. A yo-yo dance between the rook and the queen.
That's not good enough for Sindarov. He needs to win. He's down 1 point. The white queen goes a different direction, grabs a pawn, but now the black rooks coordinate and harry the h-pawn marching forward. Whose pawn is quickest? It's a pure race right now.
I mean, it looks like it's going to be the h-pawn, right? Which comes in with a big check on that h1 square, assisted by the beautiful 2 black rooks, as well as Javakir clears the squares for his own pawn to move up the board.
Here we go. It's going to be checkmate on the board, potentially. Nope, he trades off queens. A new queen is born. And here, it's all about the clock. Sindarov down at 12 seconds. It's not enough. The white queen fighting a losing battle. And there we go. It's resignation from Sindarov. Hikaru with a fist pump.